Every afternoon, when the final school bell rang, the children of Cedar Grove Elementary rushed out the doors like a wave, laughing, shouting, dragging backpacks that bumped against their knees. But one boy never ran. Eli Turner, a quiet 7-year-old with sandy hair and big brown eyes, always walked straight to the tall black gate by the playground. That was his spot. He sat on the same patch of grass every day, swinging his legs and watching the road. He was waiting for his dad. "Hey, Eli," his teacher, Mrs. Clark, would say kindly. "You can go play while you wait." But Eli would just smile politely and shake his head. "It's okay, ma'am. My dad's coming soon. I don't want to miss him." Every day, cars pulled up, moms waving, dads honking, kids jumping into hugs. And every day, Eli stayed. When the last car left, he'd still be there, backpack hugged against his chest, looking down the street. Sometimes, the janitor, Mr. Lewis, would stop by and ask softly, "You okay, kiddo? Need me to call someone?" He would shake his head again. "No, sir. Dad said he'd be here. He's just working late today." The truth was, Eli had been saying that for 3 weeks. At home, his mother, Sarah Turner, tried her best to keep things together, making lunches, helping with homework, smiling even when her eyes looked tired. But when Eli asked, "Mom, when's Daddy coming back to pick me up again?" she would just pause, swallow hard, and say, "Soon, sweetheart, soon," because she couldn't find the right words to tell him that his father wasn't coming back. It had been a month since Eli's father, Mark Turner, had left for work that rainy morning and never come home. The accident had been sudden, a truck on the highway, a phone call no one ever wants to answer. Sarah Turner's world had shattered, but she couldn't let Eli's world shatter too. He was too young to understand words like accident and gone forever. All he understood was, Dad promised he'd pick me up after school. That promise kept him waiting. Every morning before they left for school, Eli would tug at his mom's sleeve. "Mom, are you sure Daddy knows what time to get me?" Sarah forced a smile that never quite reached her eyes. "I'm sure he does, honey." And every afternoon, Eli sat by the gate, watching, waiting. Sometimes he'd whisper to himself, "Maybe today's the day." One afternoon, as the sun dipped low and shadows stretched across the playground, Mrs. Clark came outside. She sat beside him quietly. "Eli, it's getting late again. Do you want me to walk you home?" He shook his head. "No, ma'am. Dad said I should wait right here. He promised he'd come for me."
Her throat tightened. "I know he did, sweetheart." She wanted to tell him the truth, but every time she looked into his hopeful eyes, the words froze in her mouth. That evening, when Sarah arrived to take him home, she found him half asleep by the gate, his backpack as a pillow. She knelt down, brushing his hair back. "Let's go home, baby," she whispered. Eli murmured sleepily, "Mom, when Dad comes, will he know where to find me?" Her heart broke all over again. "Yes, Eli," she whispered, tears falling onto a small hand. "He'll always know where to find you." The next morning, sunlight spilled across the Turner family's small kitchen. Eli sat at the table eating cereal while his mom quietly stared at her coffee, lost in thought. The house was still filled with traces of Mark, his jacket hanging by the door, his boots under the bench, his laugh echoing faintly in their memories. Eli looked up and said softly, "Mom, can I write Daddy a letter? Maybe he didn't come because he forgot where we live." Sarah's chest tightened, but she smiled weakly. "Of course, sweetheart. That's a wonderful idea." Eli ran to get his crayons and a sheet of notebook paper. He sat for a long time, his tongue sticking out as he wrote carefully in uneven letters. "Dear Dad, I wait for you at the gate every day. I think maybe you're busy at work, but that's okay. I'm being good, just like you said. Mom misses you too. Please come soon. Love, Eli." He folded the paper and handed it to his mom. "Can we send it today?" Sarah looked at the letter, her eyes blurring with tears. She didn't know what to say. Finally, she nodded and said, "Yes, honey, we'll send it to him." That evening, after Eli went to bed, she placed the letter carefully in a small box on her dresser, the one filled with photos and memories of Mark. She traced her fingers over the words, "Please come soon." Later that week, Eli told Mrs. Clark about his letter. He said, "I sent it to Dad, so he'll know to come pick me up again." Mrs. Clark smiled softly, blinking away tears. "That's very kind, Eli. I'm sure your dad will be happy to hear from you." Every day afterward, Eli waited even more eagerly. He'd look down the street and whisper, "He got my letter. He's coming soon." And though his mother cried quietly each night, she never took that hope away from him. Because in that hope, his father still lived. It was a cloudy Friday afternoon when Eli Turner hurried out of class, clutching his backpack straps. He ran straight to his spot by the black gate, his shoes splashing through small puddles. That morning, he had told his mom, "I think today's the day, Mom. Dad's coming. I can feel it." Sarah had only managed a quiet, "Okay, sweetheart," before watching him skip down the driveway.
Now, as Eli sat by the gate, he watched each car carefully. His heart leapt at every honk, every flash of headlights, but each time another parent picked up their child and drove away. Then, for the first time in weeks, someone stopped by the gate who wasn't a parent or a teacher. A man in a brown delivery uniform stepped out of his van. He had kind eyes and a tired smile. "Hey there, buddy. You waiting for someone?" Eli nodded. "My dad, he's coming to pick me up." The man looked around. The schoolyard was almost empty. "Well, I bet he's proud of you, waiting so patiently." Eli's eyes lit up. "He is. He works really hard. Sometimes he's late, but that's okay." The man nodded slowly, unsure how to respond. He noticed the teacher, Mrs. Clark, standing by the door, watching quietly. She gave a small shake of her head, a sign that told him, "This boy's waiting for someone who can't come back." The man's heart tightened. He crouched beside Eli and said softly, "You know, my dad used to work late too, but even when I didn't see him, I always felt like he was watching out for me." Eli tilted his head. "You think my dad watches me too?" "I'm sure he does. Probably right from the sky." Eli smiled, small and unsure. "Then maybe he saw my letter." "I think he did," the man said, standing up. "And I think he's really proud of you." That evening, as Sarah arrived to pick up her son, she saw Eli waving toward the clouds. "Mom," she said, pointing up, "I think Dad saw me today." And for the first time in weeks, Sarah smiled through her tears and whispered, "I think you're right, baby." The next morning, the air was crisp and the sky clear, a perfect Saturday. Birds chirped outside the Turners' small house, and sunlight danced across the living room floor. Eli sat by the window, his letterbox open beside him. Inside were his drawings for his dad, stick figures of their family, crayon skies, and hearts with wings. "Mom," he said suddenly, "do you think Dad can see things from up in the sky?" Sarah looked up from the dishes, hesitating. She had been dreading this question, but Eli's voice was so soft, so full of trust, that she couldn't lie anymore. She took a deep breath and sat beside him. "Sweetheart," she said gently, "I think your dad is in heaven now." Eli frowned, puzzled. "Is that far away?" "It's not far," she said, smiling through tears. "You can't see it,
But it's above us, in the sky, where all the love goes when someone leaves.
He was quiet for a long time, staring at the clouds outside. Then he whispered, "If he's up there, maybe I can send him another letter." Sarah's eyes widened. "Another letter?" "Yeah," Eli said, excited again. "But this time, I'll send it higher, all the way to him." That afternoon, they walked to the park with a bundle of bright blue balloons. Eli had written a short note in his careful handwriting. "Dear Dad, I know you're in the sky now. I'll still wait at the gate, but I won't be sad, okay? I love you. Eli." He tied the note to one of the balloons, held it close, and whispered, "I miss you, Dad." Then he let go. The balloon drifted higher and higher, shining like a tiny star against the blue. Eli watched until it disappeared. "Did he get it, Mom?" he asked softly. Sarah knelt beside him, tears running freely now. "Yes, sweetheart," she said, wrapping her arms around him. "He got it, and he's smiling right now." Eli looked up one last time, and for the first time since the accident, he smiled too, because somewhere deep inside, he finally believed it. Monday morning came too soon. The world had gone back to its routines. Buses groaning down the streets, kids laughing at the corner, the bell ringing through Cedar Grove Elementary. But for Eli Turner, things felt a little different now. He still walked to the black gate after school, but his heart didn't ache quite as much. He still looked down the road, but now, when the wind brushed his hair, he whispered, "Hi, Dad," as if the breeze carried his words upward. Inside his classroom, however, there was one small reminder that still tugged at everyone's hearts: the empty chair. It had been Eli's father's chair during career day 2 months ago. Mark Turner had sat there proudly, telling the class about his job fixing trucks, smiling at Eli the entire time. After his passing, Mrs. Clark had quietly left that same chair in the back corner, never moving it. When Eli noticed it one afternoon, he walked over and sat down in it. He didn't cry. He just ran his small hand over the seat and said softly, "You can still sit here if you want, Dad." Mrs. Clark, standing by the desk, turned away quickly to hide her tears. Later, when class ended, she found a small piece of paper on the chair. It read, "For Dad, you can sit here whenever you come." She carefully folded it and tucked it into her desk drawer, promising herself she'd keep it safe forever. That evening, as Eli left the school, he turned once more toward the gate. The sky was painted gold with sunset, and a single ray of light shone straight through the clouds. He smiled. "See you tomorrow, Dad." For the first time, he wasn't waiting for his father to come back. He was learning how to carry him forward. By springtime, Eli Turner had become a little quieter. He still smiled, still drew pictures of his dad, but the sadness sometimes peeked through, like a cloud that wouldn't quite leave the sky. Then, one Monday afternoon, a new student joined the class. His name was Noah, a shy boy with freckles and messy blonde hair. He had just moved to town and didn't know anyone yet. During recess, while most of the kids played tag or kicked soccer balls, Noah sat alone on the swings, the same way Eli once waited by the gate. Mrs. Clark noticed and said gently, "Eli, why don't you go say hi to our new friend?" Eli hesitated, but nodded. He walked over, kicking the dirt softly. "Hi, I'm Eli. You like swings?" Noah shrugged. "They're okay. I just miss my old school." Eli nodded. "Yeah, I miss things too." They sat in silence for a moment, both staring at the clouds. Then Noah asked, Who do you wait for at the gate every day? I see you there." Eli smiled a little. "My dad. He's not here anymore, but I still like to wait. It makes me feel close to him." Noah's eyes looked down. "My dad doesn't live with us either. He's far away. I write him letters sometimes." Eli's eyes brightened. "Me too. I send them to the sky." From that day on, the two boys became inseparable. They walked home together, shared lunches, and drew pictures for their dads. One afternoon, Noah handed Eli a folded piece of paper. "I made this for you." It was a drawing. Two boys holding balloons, standing by a big open gate under a blue sky full of stars. At the top, it said, "For Eli and his dad, from your friend, Noah." Eli held it close and smiled. "Thanks, Noah. I think my dad would really like you." Noah grinned. "Then I guess he's my friend too." And for the first time in a long while, Eli didn't wait alone at the gate anymore. A few weeks later, Mrs. Clark announced a new assignment. "All right, class," she said cheerfully. "Our next project is called Someone Who Inspires Me. You can choose anyone, a family member, a friend, even a famous person. You'll write a short story and share it with the class next Friday." Most kids immediately started whispering ideas. "I'm doing my mom. I'm picking a firefighter." But Eli Turner just sat quietly, tapping his pencil. When recess came, his friend Noah ran up to him. "Who are you going to write about?" Eli smiled softly. "My dad." "Yeah, I kind of knew you'd say that." That evening, Eli sat at the kitchen table with his notebook open. His mom was folding laundry nearby. "Mom?" he asked. "Do you think I can write about Dad for school?" She paused, holding one of Mark's old shirts in her hands. "I think that's a perfect idea, sweetheart." So Eli began to write. His handwriting was crooked, his sentences simple, but every word came from his heart. My dad, my hero. My dad fixed big trucks. He always smelled like oil and coffee. He said, "Work hard and be kind." He was going to teach me how to drive one day. He can't pick me up from school anymore, but I still wait for him at the gate. I think he's in the sky now, but he still watches me. When the wind blows, I think that's him saying, "Hey, buddy." When he finished, Sarah wiped her eyes and hugged him tight. He'd be so proud of you, Eli. The next Friday, Eli stood in front of the class and read his story aloud. His voice was soft but steady. No one whispered or giggled. Everyone just listened. When he was done, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. Mrs. Clark stood up and said gently, "Eli, that was beautiful. Thank you for sharing your dad with us." Eli smiled and said, "He's still with me. He just waits on the other side of the gate now." The class clapped quietly, and for the first time, Eli didn't feel sad telling his story. He felt proud. A few days after his class presentation, Eli Turner woke to the sound of rain tapping softly against his window. He sat up, rubbing his eyes. Outside, the world looked silver and calm. He remembered his story, the one about his dad, and how everyone clapped. It made him feel warm inside. That morning, while his mom packed his lunch, he said, "Mom, I think Dad heard me read." Sarah smiled gently. "I think so too, sweetheart." As the day went on, the rain stopped and the clouds broke apart. When the final bell rang, Eli ran out to his usual spot, the gate. Noah joined him, holding 2 paper airplanes. "Want to fly them?" Noah grinned. "Maybe we can send them up to your dad." Eli laughed. "Yeah,
Let's do it." They wrote tiny messages on each plane. Eli said, "Hi, Dad. I love you." Noah said, "Hi, Mr. Turner, from your son's best friend." Then, with a countdown, 1, 2, 3, they tossed them into the breeze. The plane soared, dancing higher and higher, until one landed in the branches of the old oak tree beside the playground. The other, Eli's, caught a current of wind and kept rising, spinning and gliding until it vanished beyond the rooftops. Eli squinted, watching it disappear. "He'll get it," he said softly.
That night, as they sat down for dinner, Sarah noticed something glinting on the windowsill. It was a small silver keychain, shaped like a truck. Eli's eyes widened. "Mom, that's Dad's! He used to keep it in his jacket pocket." Sarah froze. She knew she hadn't moved it since the accident. The jacket had been hanging untouched in the hallway closet for months. Somehow, the keychain had found its way to Eli's window. Eli held it tightly in his hand. "See, Mom? He got my message." Sarah hugged him close, her tears wetting his hair. "Yes, baby, he sure did." And from that night on, Eli kept the truck keychain with him everywhere he went, not because he was waiting anymore, but because he knew his father was already there. Spring melted into summer, and the world around Cedar Grove filled with color again. For the first time in months, laughter returned easily to Eli Turner's home. His mom smiled more, music played in the kitchen, and their house began to feel alive again. Then one morning, as the calendar turned to June, Sarah said with a soft smile, "Guess what, birthday boy?" Eli's eyes widened. "It's today?" She nodded. 7 years old. My, how time flies. They baked cupcakes together that afternoon, vanilla with blue frosting, because blue was his dad's favorite color. Eli carefully placed one extra cupcake on a plate by the window. "That one's for Dad. He can see it from the sky." When Noah arrived with a gift and a smile, the house filled with laughter. They played games, made balloon animals, and watched old cartoons. For a while, everything felt normal, warm and bright, like before. But that night, when the candles were lit and everyone gathered around the cake, Sarah noticed Eli's eyes flicker toward the empty chair at the table. He closed his eyes, hands clasped, and whispered his birthday wish. After everyone sang, Noah asked curiously, "What did you wish for?" He smiled softly. "I wished Dad could see me turning 7, and I think he did." Later that evening, after the guests left, Eli sat by his window, the truck keychain resting in his palm. The moon shone bright, and the stars glittered like birthday candles in the sky. Just then, a small breeze slipped through the curtain and made the cupcake's candle flicker, not out, but brighter. Eli grinned. "Thanks, Dad," he whispered. "I know you're still here." And that night, for the first time since his father's passing, Eli fell asleep smiling, because he finally understood that love doesn't end when someone's gone. It just changes shape. The end of the school year brought excitement, posters on the wall, summer songs and music class, and the one thing everyone talked about, the annual field trip.
This year, Mrs. Clark had chosen a visit to the city's science museum. The kids buzzed with excitement, clutching permission slips and snack bags. When the big yellow bus pulled up, Eli Turner climbed aboard with his best friend Noah. He sat by the window, his dad's silver truck keychain hanging from his backpack zipper, glinting in the sun. "Ready for adventure?" Noah grinned. Eli nodded. "Dad used to take me to places like this. I think he'd like it." At the museum, everything sparkled with wonder. Glowing stars in the planetarium, giant dinosaur bones, rockets that reached for the ceiling. But when they reached the exhibit called Journey Through Space, Eli stopped and stared. A model solar system spun slowly above their heads, lights blinking like tiny suns. A voice from the speakers said, "Every star we see is light that has traveled thousands of years just to reach us." Eli whispered, "That's like messages from heaven." Mrs. Clark overheard and smiled softly. "That's a beautiful way to think of it, Eli." Later, as the class boarded the bus to go home, the sky darkened. Rain began to fall, and thunder rumbled in the distance. Eli pressed his face to the window, watching raindrops race down the glass. Suddenly, lightning flashed, and for a split second, he saw something that made his heart skip, a rainbow forming through the clouds. He nudged Noah. "Look!" Noah grinned. "Whoa! It's like your dad saying hi again." Eli smiled, holding his keychain close. "Yeah," he whispered. "He's telling me he's still watching me." When the bus pulled back into the school parking lot, the rainbow still glowed faintly above the gate. And that's where Eli stopped before going home. Standing beneath the colors, whispering, "Thanks, Dad. I saw you." That night, the rain came back, soft, steady, and whispering against the windows. Eli Turner curled under his blanket, the silver truck keychain resting on his nightstand. The rhythm of the raindrops slowly pulled him into sleep. But that night, his dream felt different. He was standing at the school gate again, just like always. The sky above was glowing, not dark, not light, but a soft golden color that shimmered like sunlight through water. The street was quiet, but he could hear a low hum like music far away. Then, through the glow, a figure appeared. "Dad?" Eli whispered. It was him, Mark Turner, wearing the same old work jacket, his smile warm and gentle. He looked healthy, strong, and kind, just like Eli remembered. "Hey, buddy," his father said, kneeling down. "You've been waiting a long time, huh?" Eli's eyes filled with tears. "I thought you weren't coming."
Mark shook his head. "I've always been here, kiddo. You just couldn't see me. But I saw you, every day by that gate." Eli took a shaky breath. "I sent you letters and balloons. Did you get them?" Mark smiled. "Every single one." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small piece of paper, the crumpled note that said, "I love you, Dad." Eli gasped. "You kept it?" "Of course," Mark said softly. "It's my favorite letter." The boy hugged him tight. For a moment, everything was quiet. No rain, no sound, just the feeling of being held again. Then Mark gently pulled away and said, "You don't have to wait at the gate anymore, okay? I'll always find you, no matter where you are." Eli nodded, tears falling down his cheeks. "I love you, Dad. I love you too, son. Now go live. Go laugh. Go be happy." The golden light grew brighter until Eli couldn't see anymore. When he woke up the next morning, the rain had stopped and sunlight filled his room. The keychain on this nightstand glowed faintly, as if touched by light from somewhere far beyond. He smiled and whispered, "I know, Dad. You're still here." After that dream, something inside Eli Turner began to change. He still missed his dad, he always would, but the sadness didn't feel so heavy anymore. It was softer now, like a hand, resting gently on his shoulder. One warm morning while walking to school, Eli noticed something near the gate, a patch of ground where the grass had stopped growing. He crouched down, touching the dirt thoughtfully. That afternoon, he went home and told his mom, "Mom, can I plant something at the gate? I want it to be for Dad." Sarah paused, then smiled through her tears. "That's a beautiful idea." Together, they went to the garden store. Eli chose a small oak tree sapling, thin and fragile, with bright green leaves. He said Dad liked oak trees. He said they're strong, like families. That weekend, with the help of Mrs. Clark, Noah, and even the janitor, Mr. Lewis, they planted the tree right beside the gate where Eli had always waited. He tied his dad's silver truck keychain to a low branch and whispered, "This is your spot now, Dad." Over the next months, the tree began to grow, slowly, steadily, reaching upward toward the sky. Kids played around it, teachers sat under its shade, and everyone called it Eli's tree. Sometimes when the wind blew through its branches, it made a soft jingling sound, the keychain tapping gently against the bark, and every time Eli heard it, he smiled and whispered, "Hi, Dad."
By autumn, the tree had grown taller, its leaves turning golden, shining in the afternoon sun. One day, Noah asked, "Does it make you sad to see it and remember?" Eli shook his head. "No, it makes me happy. It's like Dad's still watching everyone go home safe." And in that moment, as the wind rustled the golden leaves, it almost sounded like the tree was whispering back, "I'm proud of you, son." Summer faded into a crisp golden autumn, and Cedar Grove Elementary buzzed with new energy. The classrooms smelled of new pencils and chalk dust, and laughter filled the playground once again. Eli Turner was now in 3rd grade. He was taller, a little braver, and still wore his dad's silver truck keychain, now tied neatly to his backpack. Every morning, he stopped by the oak tree by the gate, touching its trunk before going inside. It had grown taller since the day they planted it, with strong branches stretching toward the sky. The janitor, Mr. Lewis, had built a small wooden sign that read, "The Turner Tree, a place of love and hope." On the first day of school, Eli stood beneath it with Noah, who was now in his class. "It's getting big," Noah said, shading his eyes. Eli grinned. "Dad's helping it grow. I think he likes watching all the kids walk by." Mrs. Clark, now his new homeroom teacher again, overheard them and smiled. "I think your dad would be very proud of this tree, and of you, Eli." That day in class, when everyone was asked to share what they did over the summer, kids talked about beaches, road trips, and family visits. When it was Eli's turn, he stood up and said quietly, "I planted something that reminds me of my dad. It's growing stronger every day, just like I'm trying to." The room went quiet for a moment, and then his classmates began to clap softly. Mrs. Clark's eyes glistened, but she didn't need to. Later that afternoon, as the final bell rang, Eli walked back to the gate. The wind was cool, the sky bright and endless. He looked up at the oak tree and whispered, "Dad, it's the first day of school again. I think I'm doing okay." And somewhere, in the soft rustle of the leaves, he felt the answer. Quiet, but sure. "You're doing more than okay, son." The weather had turned rough that week. Thick gray clouds hung low over Cedar Grove, and the air smelled like rain. Even so, Eli Turner refused to stay home. He loved school, and more than that, he wanted to check on his tree. By lunchtime, thunder rolled across the sky, and the teachers decided to end school early. "Everyone, your parents are coming to pick you up. We'll wait inside until it's safe." Eli stood by the window, watching rain pour down in silver sheets. The branches of his oak tree bent in the wind, and the little sign that read, "A place of love and hope," shook violently. "Noah," he whispered, "my tree." When the rain slowed to a drizzle, Eli slipped out of line and ran toward the gate. The ground was muddy, puddles splashing beneath his shoes. He reached the tree just as a strong gust of wind blew, snapping one of the lower branches. He caught it before it hit the ground, his heart racing. "It's okay," he murmured. "I've got you, Dad."
Behind him, he heard shouting. "Eli, come back!" Mrs. Clark and Noah were running toward him, their clothes soaked. Eli clutched the broken branch tightly, tears mixing with rain. "It's hurt," he cried. "I don't want it to fall." Mrs. Clark knelt beside him, steadying his small shoulders. "It's okay, sweetheart. Trees are strong. They bend so they don't break, just like people." Noah helped him carry the branch back to the school porch. When the storm finally passed, a rainbow stretched across the wet sky, arching beautifully right above the gate. Eli smiled through his tears. "See, Dad? It's still standing." That evening, he and his mom returned with tape and string to tie the branch back in place. Together they worked until the sun dipped low. When they were done, Sarah brushed his hair back and said, "You saved it, Eli." He shook his head gently. "No, Mom, it saved me." A few weeks after the storm, Eli Turner noticed something special near the gate. The janitor, Mr. Lewis, had built a small wooden box beside Eli's tree. It was painted sky blue with a tiny sign on top that read, "Letters to Heaven." Eli's eyes widened. "Did you make that?" he asked. Mr. Lewis smiled softly. "You inspired it, kiddo. I thought maybe you and anyone else could write messages to people they miss. I'll keep the box safe." Eli beamed. "That's amazing." That afternoon, after class, he sat cross-legged beneath the tree with his notebook. Noah joined him, holding extra paper and crayons. "What are you going to write?" Noah asked. Eli thought for a moment, tapping his pencil against his chin. Then he began to write slowly. "Dear Dad, I don't wait at the gate anymore because I know you're already here. The tree we planted is growing strong. It's like you, brave and big. Sometimes, when the wind blows, I think it's you telling me you're proud. I hope heaven is nice. Love, Eli." He folded the letter neatly and slid it into the blue box. For a moment, he rested his hand on the lid and whispered, "You'll always have mail, Dad."
Soon, other children began leaving letters too. Small drawings, notes, even poems. Some were for grandparents, some for pets, some for people they missed dearly. The little box filled quickly, becoming a secret treasure chest of love and memories. One day, Mrs. Clark walked by and said softly, "You started something beautiful, Eli. You've helped everyone remember how to keep love alive." Eli smiled. "I think Dad wanted that." And from then on, the gate, once a place of waiting, became a place of remembering, healing, and hope. Spring returned once again to Cedar Grove Elementary, and with it came bright skies, laughter, and new beginnings. The oak tree by the gate had grown tall and sturdy, its roots deep and strong, just like the boy who planted it. One sunny afternoon, Mrs. Clark gathered the class outside. "All right, everyone," she announced. "This year, we're making a time capsule. We'll bury it right here under Eli's tree and open it when you're all in middle school." The kids cheered. They began collecting small things that told their stories, drawings, notes, tiny toys, and photos. When it was Eli's turn, he held up a folded piece of paper. "I want to put in a letter," he said softly. Mrs. Clark smiled. "Would you like to read it first?" Eli nodded. His voice was quiet but sure. "Dear future me, I hope you remember Dad's tree and how it made you strong. I hope you're kind and still help people like Mrs. Clark and Mom and Noah. Don't forget to look up at the sky sometimes. Dad's still there, watching. And when you see someone waiting, tell them they're not alone. Love, Eli." The class was silent for a moment.
Then everyone clapped. Even Mrs. Clark dabbed her eyes. They placed the letter gently into the time capsule, along with the others, and buried it under the tree's roots. Mr. Lewis helped cover it with soil, patting the ground gently. When they were done, Eli whispered, "Now Dad's got something new to watch over." As the sun dipped low, golden light poured through the branches, and the wind rustled the leaves like a soft applause. The blue letters to heaven box jingled faintly beside the trunk, and for a second, Eli thought he heard his father's voice on the wind. "You've done good, kiddo." Eli smiled, placing his hand on the bark. "Thanks, Dad. I'll keep growing, just like you taught me." Years passed, and Cedar Grove Elementary changed. The paint on the walls was fresh, new students filled the halls, and a taller, stronger oak tree stood proudly beside the gate, its branches wide like open arms. But the heart of the school hadn't changed. The letters to heaven box still stood beneath the tree, now freshly painted every spring by volunteers. The little sign above it had faded a bit, but the words were still clear. A place of love and hope. One sunny afternoon, a group of younger students gathered by the gate. Their new teacher, a young man with kind eyes and a silver keychain clipped to his bag, smiled as they crowded around. "Mr. Turner," one of the children asked, "why do we write letters here? Who are they for?" Eli Turner, now grown, knelt beside them. "They're for the people we miss," he said gently. "Sometimes they can't be here anymore, but we can still talk to them." "Do you write letters too?" another asked. Eli smiled softly. "I used to. When I was your age, I waited right here every day for my dad. I thought he'd come pick me up. But later, I realized he never really left. He just started watching me from a different place." The children listened quietly, eyes wide. A gentle breeze rustled through the leaves, and the silver truck keychain jingled faintly, the same one his father once carried. Eli looked up at the sunlight flickering through the branches. "This gate used to be where I waited. Now it's where I teach kids that love doesn't end. It just finds new ways to stay." The bell rang, and the students ran back inside. Eli stood for a moment longer, placing his hand on the rough bark of the tree. "Hey, Dad," he whispered, smiling. "The kids are doing great. I think you'd like them." And as the wind moved through the branches, soft, warm, and full of life, it seemed to whisper back, "I do, son. I do." Eli turned, walked through the gate, and headed toward the school. No longer the boy who waited, but the man who taught others to move forward with love.